Wall Street Unplugged looks beyond the regular headlines heard on mainstream financial media to bring you unscripted interviews and breaking commentary direct from Wall Street right to you on Main Street.
What's going on out there? It's May 10th. I'm Frank Curzio, it's the Wall Street Unplugged. So I bring the headlines and tell you what's really moving these markets. You know, all home builders are pretty effed up. I mean, the more I tell my story about my house, the more emails I get with similar horror stories. In fact, I haven't received one email telling me that their builder was awesome, it was great, it was the best experience ever. Not one. I've probably gotten about 30 different emails. Even people in the industry, they're laughing, going, yeah, I know what you're going through, buddy. But for me, I closed my house in December, as many of you know. My construction loan turned over into a traditional mortgage. So it's my first house, and I had no idea how this works. Just got thrown into the fire. So the construction company is paying everything, right? So it's under construction loan. They pay for everything while it's under that loan. It's it's no interest, right? They just pay it, and it's a lot lower than a regular mortgage, but it's the construction loan. So they're paying for electricity, they're paying for water, all the bills while it's under the construction loan. So once I closed and switched over, they still needed to do more work on the house in order for me to move there. I didn't understand this part. Because it wasn't a ton of work, right? It wasn't a lot of work, just like little things, like install a propane tank so I have hot water and cook food so I could eat and I could live. I had to install fans and lights so I could see at night. Had to clean the place since it was full of dust, footprints on the hardwood floors. Had to install a fence around the property so my dogs don't run into my brand new neighbor's backyard and take a shit in their yard. It's not really a good first impression. Had to install my TVs and internet still. This way I know what's going on with the world. It's a little bit important for the job that I do, know what's going on. Little things like that they still needed to do. But I closed. They promised, hey, we're going to do all this stuff right away. So now it took us another 3 months to move in. So since I closed in December, now the loan switched over and I'm paying for all those bills, even though I'm not living there. So I'm paying for those 3 months for basic construction workers to live in my house. So now that it's a mortgage, which again, I learned the hard way, but once a construction loan switches over, now the interest comes in and the payment increases by 3x. And now that's your mortgage. So now I'm paying a lot of money, not living there. And even when we had to check on the house at night to say, hey, let's, me and my wife were about 50 minutes away. So let's go out there, see what they did. We go out there probably every 3 days or whatever. I should have been there every day. So I would definitely recommend for you guys, build a house, be there every day because they're going to cut corners as much as they can, especially going forward since the market is slowing a little bit, which we'll get to in a minute. But I went to check on the house at night. All the lights in the house are on that I'm paying for. Irrigation, water going on, even in places where there's no grass. Hey, no problem here. Then when I finally move in mid-April, again, all this was promised to be done, which it wasn't. We still have vendors coming in and out of my house daily, like they live there with us. I mean, just coming in and out in the morning as our kids are getting ready for school. And a funny story, one guy walked in. One guy walked in the other day. My father just sitting on the couch. I didn't even see him. I think it was like 11 a.m. I didn't even see the guy. I turned around. My wife jumped. I was going to kill the guy. I had no idea. Turned out it was the plumber. He just used to walking in the house all the time and doing everything. He hasn't been there for a few weeks. But of course, supposed to come 2 days before that. And now decided to show up out of the blue. Like that's normal. Again, welcome to Florida. That's very normal here. I'll see you at 3 o'clock on Wednesday. And no call, no nothing, and they'll show up like Friday and knock on that door like they're expected to be there. Hey, how's it going? How you doing? I've learned to just close the door right in their face if they don't get the hint. But even better, 2 weeks after we moved in, right? So now we're in, and we're like, okay, we're moving in. They got to do a couple more things, whatever. So now we finally moved in. My daughter is taking a shower in the upstairs bathroom, and the pan happened to be sliced. Like, it's almost impossible to do unless you're a complete freaking idiot, right? This is a brand new house. Brand new house, and there's a pan underneath the shower, and it was sliced completely open, right? You can't see it because they have the towels over it. So as soon as it goes down the drain, it leaked. It leaked all the way downstairs, through my ceiling, started pouring water onto my island in the kitchen, onto my hardwood floors. They had to demo the entire shower. Again, while we're living there. Tiles, floor, everything. They're still fixing it right now. They're coming tomorrow to tile it finally. Tomorrow. But the home building industry, I mean, there's a reason why these assholes are trading 52-week highs. Hey, when demand is strong, they bang you out. They can do whatever they want. We've heard this, even from people who are vendors. And they say, look, it's a market now where they're dying for workers. At least, you've seen it die down a lot more. I'll get to that in a second. I mean, last year and 2 years ago, when interest rates were lower, they just can't get anyone to help, so they just get anyone. And these people just go there, do their job, and they want to run to the next house to get paid. That's it. They need to hire these guys that aren't even qualified now. And you could tell because sometimes we're at the house, you have to see these characters that are in my house. One guy was smoking in my house. I don't care how many tattoos you have or whatever. I really don't. I don't judge anyone. But when your pants are hanging down, with your underwear hanging out, and they're hanging like off of your knee, and you're smoking, and you have 3 teeth in your mouth, I'm worried. A little worried. You got to be a little worried about a guy like that, a little bit, right? And again, I don't judge anyone. I don't care how many teeth you have. I don't care. I'm not going to judge you. I treat everyone the same. You never know who you're talking to. Always. But man, you're smoking in my house, in my garage? Are you kidding me? And these are the people that they had to hire. Demand's strong. Now, it's funny because I got a 2-screen enclosure over my pool. It was really supposed to be 1 story, but when they were building the house, didn't really show on the diagram because I don't know how to read this stuff. Again, they show it's massive, right? It's just you're looking at all these lines, construction, again, all the blueprints, and you really don't know what's going on. It's your first house, right? You don't know. You don't know if one wall's like 2 inches higher than the other one. And we saw like walls are off and they had to redo the doors already and stuff. But we realized that a 1-screen enclosure, there's windows in the back of the house. It's nice. We got a nice view out there. It's going to go, the beam goes right across. So it's either we're going to get a 2-story or no story, right? We're going to get nothing or no screen enclosure. And we decided, all right, let's go for a 2-story, which is a little bit more expensive. So we're like, okay, fine. So we go to the pool vendor who's over the house. They're doing the pool. And I said, hey, do you guys know anyone? She's like, sure. She's like, Fred, I'll hook you up. I know a guy. I will hook you up. Definitely. I like you. I'm going to hook you up. You're the best in the world. Okay, great. Next day, the guy meets with me, and she happens to come to the house as well, right? She's like, oh, you got to meet my guy. So going over the guy, he's measuring, going back and forth, and doing his thing, and saying, okay, this looks good, or whatever. I'm like, okay, and the guy's like, all right, it's going to cost $115,000 for metal and a screen, right? For metal and a screen. Now, my pool wasn't done yet. If it was, I would have dunked this guy's head in it like 10 times. I'm not even kidding. That's how pissed off I was. I have a screen enclosure on my current house. I know how much they cost. I know even how much they cost with inflation. And this guy just tried to rake me. And you have to realize, at first he was a high-pressure salesperson. He was like, you should book it now. You should book it right now and sign. I can't come for another 6 months. All these guys are booked. You're not going to find anyone. Not too many people do 2-stories enclosures. Give me the whole sales pitch and everything. I'm like, really? I was like, are you kidding me? Right? Of course, I'm going to do the research into this. I'm like, there's no way it can cost that much. There's no way. I could buy another house in someplace for $115,000. There's no way. And remember, this is from a vendor that I'm using through my builder. So I'm already a customer, not a new one you're trying to fuck. Excuse my language. But an existing client. I'm an existing one. You should be hooking me up with people right now. Buying a new house. It turns out everyone's going to get a piece of this. The builder would have got a free check for doing nothing for $20,000. You got the pool guy would have got a free check for $20,000 for doing nothing just because they reckon. That's how it was. So my neighbor, really nice guy from New York and cool, just, he had a screen enclosure, gave me this guy, and he literally did it for 1/3 of the price. Again, this comes from my builder, who I'm a customer that they're still trying to screw. Then another thing happened is my allowances. I made sure we had a lot of money left over for extras. And I got to tell you, they burned through this like nothing. Like nothing. Like absolutely nothing. I mean, if it's there, they're taking it. So by the time they're done, they're not like writing you a check and saying, oh, you had extra money left over. No freaking way. They're using that and they're going to charge you even more. And it's going to be things that you see during your house. You're like, hey, I want to upgrade this or upgrade that or whatever, right? So yeah, that's where they really start banging as you see your house getting built. But the best part were the builder actually gives you certain allowances. It says, here's the allowances for the cabinets, and you could upgrade to this, and here's the allowances for the sinks, you could upgrade to that, the bathrooms and mirrors, you could upgrade to this. Well, for the lights, right, we have an allowance the builder gives for our lights. So I need like a bunch of ceiling fans, lights in several rooms, outside the front door, above the island, along the garage, all these lights. So they're like, hey, we give you the guy, this is the vendor we use, go to them, they'll take care of you. So I walk in, and they're like, oh, take a look at a couple things first. I'm looking, I'm like, wow, lights are really expensive. I don't know shit about lights. And that was the hardest thing. I mean, you could find research about everything that you're going to build. There's like a billion lights. Like, I don't even know how someone say they could be an expert in lights. There's like a billion of them. There's a billion of them. It's not like, wow, there's so many light structures, fixtures, forget it. It would take you probably 6 years to understand how you want the lights to be put in your house, what you have to do, electricity-wise, but there's just so many fixtures, structures, everything that you're like, it's just totally overwhelming. When you get a pool, you kind of know, you can look at pictures, you get certain things in your house, you can look, the bathroom design. Lights is a billion of them. So I'm going in there, I'm looking, I'm like, wow, lights are kind of expensive. And so I asked Liz, I said, how much is our allowance? She goes, well, your allowance for the whole entire house is $1,500. That covered like 2 lights outside my garage. So I have to use that vendor who's going to bang me out because I'm using the builders, right? They get 20% markup. So they're going to bang me out. I said, really? $1,500? I said, what am I going to do? What do you want me to get? Like 5 light bulbs? That's the allowance. Anyway, I'm hoping everything's going to be done with my house by the end of this month. Hoping, because people keep asking. I like venting about it and bitching. Plus, I never notice how many people are in the same boat as me. Plus, this has to do with the industry as well. And for me, I can't even get furniture yet because there's still dust from the sheetrock construction. So, we're very frustrated. We're almost there. The house is pretty. Not going to bitch, I'm getting a new house, right? But still, it's very frustrating when you're excited. They gave me a bottle of champagne when I closed in December. I didn't move into the house in April. I'm like, what the hell you want me to do with this? Stick up the guy's ass. I said, are you kidding me? You give me champagne after you didn't even finish the house yet? And I'm the idiot who closed, but, we had everything in contract. They promised they were going to do all this stuff, and they didn't do it, which opens up the door to, I've never sued anyone in my life, but, now the costs are getting out of hand. And it's crazy. And it's frustrating. It takes a toll on your marriage when you're fighting and you're arguing and stupid shit and just, guys walking in when you're getting stuff done for, your kids are studying and waking up for school. It's crazy. When you look at home builders in general, guys, it's nice when you have strong demand. When you have massive demand, and it's still very, very strong in Florida, and I don't see that changing, at least in Florida, but from what I hear from a lot of people in the industry that are emailing me, they're talking about that's definitely slowing down. You have a few people, if it's in Texas or Florida, you've seen that's where the migration is from major cities and stuff, and even in Nevada and places like that. But, low tax areas. But in a lot of these states, you're seeing slowdowns. I mean, you look at rates at 6.8%, close to 7%. They were 3%, 18 months ago? I mean, that's significant amount of money for middle America. Now, people are going to pay cash for the houses or whatever, or part of the 1% or even part of the 2 or 3%, but the majority of people are going to take out a mortgage. And man, I mean, you're looking at a number that's much, 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 much higher. So home builders are not going to be in the driver's seat much longer. I know that there is a supply shortage. I know I study the industry. Keeping price a little elevated for now, but the next 12 months, you're going to see demand fall sharply. You see it falling a little bit in areas. I live in, I have a house for my mom, which I sold because she moved to the Villages. And, we didn't get top price for that. It was on the market for about 3 months, 4 months. I mean, these things were going off the market in hours and days. And I had to lower the price by about 15%. And we still did very, very well in the house. I'm probably the greatest real estate investor that ever lived, to be honest with you. I'm just very, very lucky. I mean, in the houses that I bought, we were going to buy a house that was super expensive at the time for us. It was $500,000, which was above our head. This is in 2005, 6 with my wife, or probably not 6, probably 2007. And we didn't, right? So I got let go from street.com, and then Stansbury hired me. I had to go to Baltimore. And then I was like, they wanted me to go to Baltimore for 6 months. I said, I can't make it this 6, so I can only be there 5 months in Baltimore. I don't know how anyone in the world lives in Baltimore. I have a lot of friends live in Baltimore. Our industry is built in Baltimore. I just, live in New York. Well, maybe not now. New York's not the nice city in the world, but you're paying high prices and you walk down the wrong block, you're done. Baltimore's serious. I mean, people think Baltimore's serious when it comes to crime. They don't mess around. Holy cow. But I was like, I'm out of there. Went to Florida and happened to buy a house in 2010, which anyone who bought a house in 2010 did very, very well. I bought my mom's house early too. And this other house I bought 2 years ago. Again, it's in Florida, and Florida prices keep going up. So maybe I should get a job in real estate. You just say, hey, I'm a genius. That's the investor. In reality, I just got very, very lucky, right? So I got fired at the right time. Not fired, but let go from the street. And sometimes things work out. Sometimes the moments that you think are the worst turn out to be the best. I'm serious. You should think about that. That's a little deep, but I'm dead serious. But you're looking around the U.S., you see demand starting to fall. You know, again, where I live right now, we're going to sell this house, this current house, to move into our new house. We didn't sell it yet. We're getting it fixed up a little bit. Lived there for 12 years. You don't realize how much crap you have when you have kids, right? Oh, my God, so much crap. Not to mention how much you need to really update the house. And you know, it's on Fernandina Beach, Amelia Island, and those prices, I mean, they're still going like hot right off the market. Prices still, you know, doing well in some areas, but not all areas of Florida. So you're seeing demand starting to fall off. It's going to be interesting to see the home builders. Should the home builders be trading their 52-week highs right now? Not 52-week highs, all-time highs? All-time highs? Business is better than it's ever been? Because I could tell you, when I looked at the latest reports, look at their backlog of business over the next year. I mean, some of them are dropping 40, 50%. Okay, they're filling in the orders, and usually it's 12, 18 months. But if you look 2 years out, you look at those backlogs, I mean, they're starting to fall off a cliff right now. And it's crazy. Again, you're still keeping prices up a little bit because of supply, but man, home builders, all-time highs, where rates are right now, with a recession likely going to happen. Slowdown, I don't know. Doesn't seem like they should be trading at all-time highs. Maybe you have some home builders outperforming, they did great, inventory, getting off the books, whatever. Got supply agreements locked in place, they fix their supply chains, getting stuff to houses, whatever. But at all-time highs? Crazy when you think about it. When it comes to my home, sorry to vent. If you're going to build your own home, which I hope everyone, seriously, I mean this, I hope everyone listening to this gets a chance to do one day. I mean, we're in the world that we have to apologize if you're doing something like this. I'm not apologizing for shit. I mean, I'm 50 years old. I worked my ass off to get to this point to build my own house. I hope everybody does. Everybody deserves that. And maybe some of you don't want that. Maybe you want to rent, and that's cool, and that's fine. And, you know, you could pack up and move and go to whatever you want. Yeah, but this is really cool. And it's funny how you almost have to apologize for it, but I can't talk about my house or whatever, or, you know, post videos. Or, you know, it's like you're the enemy if, you know, you bust your ass and you do okay. It's kind of funny the way, you know, that used to be the American dream, right? Work harder than anybody else. You be successful. But now when you're successful, they want to take everything away from you. You're the enemy. You're terrible. Reparations. Give me money. More taxes. Right? What a difference. Man, I hope all of you are in this position. But if you do decide, and hopefully you get there through some of my advice and helping you with stocks and investments, things like that, let me know. I mean, I'll save you a shitload of money in aggravation, I can tell you, because I wish I had a redo in terms of dealing with the builder. We deal with the vendors, contracts from the beginning, allowances. I mean, I'm a genius now. I'm awesome at it now. That's always happens when you get run over by a truck learning something for the first time, right? Then you become smart. It's kind of like stocks. I said that about my nephew, Joe. And he was great. You know, he lost a lot of money. I said, that's the best lesson, though. When you get your ass kicked when you're young, first of all, you have working power. You're going to make plenty of money. But now, you know, you got to take a step back. You have to understand it's not as easy as you think. David Portnoy, I mean, just posted videos. This is the easiest thing in the world. And then you see him getting absolutely destroyed. This is serious. Wall Street's serious. They'll take everything from you. It's not easy. But learning something for the first time and you get run over by a truck, you know, use my experience. So if you need any help, have any questions, I'll help you out. Shoot me over an email. Now let's move on to the markets. Enough of me bitching. All the focus on CPI, which is coming out after you listen to this. Just has to be on the schedule. People are like, Frank, why don't you record after it? Because I don't want to be at work till 9 o'clock at night. The time everything gets produced. So, you know, it's going to get, you can see the CPI reading later, which is cool because I love commenting about it and giving a prediction or, you know, just forecast that can make me look like an idiot. But, you know, I don't mind because, you know, we do the homework and I like throwing things out there. And being, you know, I hate playing Monday morning quarterback like people love to do. Tell you everything afterwards. This is why the Fed's an idiot. And everybody's a genius. No, let's do it before. All right, let's do it before so you can hold me accountable. Because this report in the CPI that you're going to see, and you're going to have that number when you listen to this, but it's very serious. It's very, very important. And last week we saw, what do we see? Unemployment data from April come out. This is a week after the Fed meeting where Powell raised by 25 basis points. And during that meeting, which he was fidgeting and nervous and stuttering and stuff like that, which he should be because the Fed has no clue what to do. They have no idea what to do. And nobody knows what to do. Nobody does. I mean, some took the comments saying, okay, they're pausing and it looks like they're going to lower rates, which we saw, I think the Fed funds futures, right, predicted after his comments that in June, next meeting is a 35% or 34% chance that they're going to cut rates. Well, I don't know about that. I'll dig into that in a minute because getting back to the unemployment rate, if you look at that report, it fell to 3.4%. Okay, the last time we saw a percentage like that on unemployment was 1969. That's a pretty long time ago. It's when Apollo 11 landed on the moon. Woodstock took place. Charles Manson was murdering a lot of people. The Doors and the Beatles were actually still playing live events. Okay, that's how long ago the unemployment rate was this low. What happened to the recession? What happened to, oh my God, you gotta watch. But more importantly, making matters worse for the Fed, not for workers. They're doing fine. They're making money, especially the services industry. What makes matters worse for the Fed, and why they have no clue because they've never been in a situation like this, is wages also went up in April. Think about that. Again, we're supposed to be going to recession, the slowdown. Even GDP numbers are going higher. Okay, this is an incredible report considering we are supposed to be at a point where everything's really, really slowing down and things are supposed to get worse. And they're not. And we heard this story for 12 months. For 12 months. And even 18 months. I mean, you can go back to November, October, even before that, when the Fed's talking about inflation being transitory. I mean, we're putting these forecasts like, the highest they're going to go is 2%, 3%, 4%. Now it's 5%. It's over 5% of the Fed funds rate. I mean, they gradually been raising it because we were expecting this to slow down so much quicker, and we're still expecting it. But it's not really happening, is it? Is it? Because I can tell you, with unemployment at 3.4% and wages rising, how can the Fed even think about cutting rates? Again, after the meeting, the odds of a Fed cut in June went up to about 35%. Now, what are you going to say? Frank, you're an idiot. You have no idea what you're talking about. There's a banking crisis. We're seeing commercial real estate market, cracks in that. So the Fed has to start lowering. What's the best deflationary thing that can happen? Banks fail automatically. Okay, there it is. Writing on the wall. That's what people interpreted from the meeting. I didn't interpret it. I actually listened to Powell. Because what Powell actually said is the biggest risk on the table right now is inflation. And the goal, their number one goal, is to get inflation back to 2%. That's coming out of his mouth. That's what he said. In other words, he's not concerned with the banking crisis in regionals causing systemic risk, where it's going to filter down to the big banks and ultimately to the economy. And it kind of makes sense. Like, use common sense. Forget on numbers and shit like that, right? Numbers. I just think the large banks are more capitalized than any other time in history. They've never been this large. Most are reporting record revenue right now. They reported $110 billion in sales, the four banks, last quarter. If those are the oil companies, we'd be taxing the shit out about and throwing them, throwing completely under the bus. Every CEO needs to go to jail for oil. But this is the banks. These are the banks, so it's fine. Nobody cares. But let's throw it out there. $110 billion from the four banks in sales. And some of them reported record revenue, right? They've never been stronger. Capital ratios have never been stronger. So Powell's right. I mean, systemic risk over to the big banks. You can just keep handing these to the big banks. And who cares if a few regional banks go out of business? There's 4,200 of them. How did we get to 4,200 regional banks? How's that possible? I mean, it's probably good that some of them are going out of business anyway. 4,200? I mean, what are these, bodegas? I mean, these are banks. How many regional banks do we need? Are you kidding me? 4,200 regional banks. I didn't know that until I started researching the industry to death over the past 2 months when all this shit was happening. 4,200. So who cares? Is that a big concern as these things fail? Could it create systemic risk? Maybe. I provided the case for that last week. Maybe, but nah, not really. But you need to think about this because the number one priority for the Fed has to be to get inflation under control. Why is that? Why is that so important? And it's simple. Because when inflation is low, the Fed has full control. They can keep rates low. They can use QE to buy bonds, stimulate the economy. It's why we saw the biggest bull market in a generation post-credit crisis from 2010 to 2020. Money was essentially free. They were surprised. I can't believe inflation's not going higher. Let's keep rates at zero. And we had rates going much, much higher. 2011, 2012, 2013, 14. Remember, pushing out 15, 16, 17, 8, and they kept them low. Because they didn't see inflation. They capitalized the banks. The banks weren't really lending out the money. That's who they gave it to during the credit crisis. But this time it was different with COVID. You handed it directly to people. Now we have inflation running wild. This is why the CPI report is so important. Which again, you're going to have that number when you listen to this. Now, according to economists, the CPI for April is expected to rise 0.5% from March. Rise. How is that possible? I thought inflation was moderating. Well, it is if you think about it. Depends how you want to look at the data. Well, let's look at the data as a positive. Inflation's moderating. I can give you 15 examples how inflation's moderating. Not to mention, it was 8% last year, and now it's 5.5%. So it's moderating at 5.5%. However, let's be real here. Let's put in perspective. At 5.5%, again, this number is completely acceptable all of a sudden. It worries nobody, rightly so. Again, last year was 8%. But at 5.5%, let's exclude last year, 2022, when it was 8% and hit 9%, I think, for a month or two. Let's exclude that for a minute. So at 5.5%, the last time annual inflation cracked even 4%, annual inflation cracked 4% was 1991. We've never had 4% before 2022 since 1991. We are at 5.5%. We are still going higher. But don't worry. It's going to go lower. We've been hearing that for freaking 18 months, 12 months, 6 months. We keep hearing the same story. It's going to get lower, but it's not going lower. It's going higher. So over 5% with the Fed's goal of getting back down to 2%, that's a pretty big deal, and you need to pay attention. You know why? Because it's mathematically impossible to get inflation at 2% this year. It won't happen, and it's probably not going to happen in 2024 either. I know, it sounds absolutely crazy. 2024, Frank, of course, we told it was going to happen now. It's going to happen a month from now, 2 months from now. We're seeing it in some of the data. Well, even Goldman came to its senses this week. They came out and analyzed this and said, here's what we think is going to happen with this report. Again, they're expecting the same thing, the consensus, to go up about 0.5%, and then that will put the inflation rate at 5.5%. So Goldman, after having their inflation target near 2% to end this year and under 2% for 2024, it just revised its estimates. To where now Goldman, the biggest firm, the richest clients that everybody pays attention to, everybody hates, but they want to work there, Goldman Sachs, now expects inflation to close the year at 2.9% this year. And what are their predictions for 2024? December 2024, they're expecting it to close at 2.6%. Think about that for a minute. I mean, maybe thinking, hey, 2.4% or 2.6% in 2024, that's close enough to 2%. That's not what Powell said. It's not what Powell said at the last meeting. There was someone that asked him, if by the end of this year we get close to 3%, would that be sufficient? Would it be enough to you to be like, okay? And he said, absolutely not. He said, no. 2% is a target. We're not even thinking of 3%. It's important for you to understand this because the Fed can't be there to backstop the market anymore. I mean, it can do a little bit of what they do with the regional banks and say, it's not a bailout. It's not a bailout. Kind of is a bailout. I mean, everything is a sign of a bailout. I could argue it's definitely a bailout. But if you continue to bail out, it's going to result in inflation skyrocketing again. And then the Fed totally loses control. That's the scariest feeling for the Fed. When you have inflation, they have no control. They need control. That's why they're focused on inflation. They'll deal with a couple of banks going out of business. They'll deal with 1,000 banks going out of business as long as the main ones are fine. As long as not seeing it systemic. They'll deal with commercial loans, just defaults going much, much higher. We'll deal with that. But our goal, we have to get inflation down somehow. But what are we seeing instead? Now the banking crisis. Now we're seeing inflation start to tick higher again. I mean, even in the UK, inflation's back over 10%. We're seeing inflation rise in a lot of areas. How is that possible? With the amount that you raise rates by, how is that possible? How are we seeing an unemployment rate so low? This is why you saw a stuttering, bumbling man who's usually in full control. You saw this 2 weeks ago. He had no clue because he's like, and that's how he should be. Because we've never been in a time like this where we're supposed to see when you raise rates, you're supposed to see demand fall off a cliff. You're supposed to see inflation come along. It's not falling as fast as they want it to. And yet you're seeing very strong numbers with so many economic indicators. You're seeing weakness in some areas. Again, I could provide 15 data points that show inflation is moderating, and I could show 15 data points that inflation is not moderating. For me, the simple answer is this. For you, for your family, you're paying your bills at your house. If you take all your bills, right, all your bills, and you come up with that number, I could almost guarantee you that number is higher than it was last month. It's definitely higher than it was 3 months. It's way, way higher than 6 months. And man, it's skyrocketed from a year ago. So when you bring everything together, which is the only thing that matters, right? You could point to, well, gas came down this month. And well, food prices have not really come down. Used car prices have come down. Electricity prices haven't come down. I haven't seen that. You know, so when you're looking at your bills, tuition's not coming down. They'll never come down, right? As long as the government's paying for it, they'll rake you as much as they can. Healthcare costs. U.S. Health, the largest healthcare company, just raised my premium by 11% for my workers. 11%. What happened? I thought inflation was coming down. This is last month. They said the next bill going forward, they're raising it by 11%. But if you take all the bills that you pay, you're still seeing inflation going higher, which is insane at this point considering how much that they raised. So remember, if inflation is low, the Fed has full power to stimulate the markets. They could buy bonds, increase liquidity, keep rates low. That's its priority. 100%, make no mistake. They don't care about bank failures right now. They don't care about anything. They have to bring inflation lower because when they do, they have control. And that's what they want. And right now, they don't have control. And you saw that by this bumbling, I don't want to say idiot because I have respect for the Fed guy. Every guy that's a Fed, everyone's going to attack it. I want to jump on the bandwagon and beat a guy and kick him to death when he's down. But man, that was a different Powell. That was a different Powell that we saw. It's something we've never seen him back. Like he couldn't really answer questions because it was like back and forth. And people are pissed, but the people are pissed. Why don't you come up with a solution? Oh, inflation is clearly slowing. Is it? It's not clearly slowing at 5.5%. It's going higher month over month. It's not clearly slowing. That's bullshit. That's someone that doesn't look at the data that's just shouting out something on TV. That's bullshit. I look at the data. That's bullshit. It's moderating. It's come down, but now it's starting to go a little bit higher. But that's 100% right. You have to control inflation. Not start cutting because a couple of banks failed. So unless we see a huge market crash, which could happen, I don't think there's anyone out there that doesn't believe we're going to go into recession or avoid it. And I got to tell you, looking back at history, the market almost never hits a bottom before the recession, right? You always hit the bottom before the recession, right? So we hit a bottom and now we're going into recession where we're going higher and higher. But usually we see the market really go a lot lower before the recession actually hits. And recession's not here yet. Now with unemployment 3.4, I mean, they always go back, 6 months from now, they're going to be like, well, in, 2022 in August, that's when the recession started. And they're going to tell us that in 2024, which is meaningless. But that's not the case. We're not in a recession right now. But we're going to have to see a huge market crash. And yes, the Fed looks at that. They absolutely look at that. They did when they looked at Lehman failing during a credit crisis, went back to Congress, get TARP passed. Remember, the Dow started crashing like, holy shit, get them back in the room. They got to pass this thing now. They're looking at the markets. They're looking at bank failures, right? Just recently, and look what happened. All right, we got to inject money into the system because they had no clue. They injected $30 billion. They got the big banks together, locked in a room, said, here, First Republic, give them $30 billion. They'll be fine. And they still crashed, and they still had to get seized by the FDIC. I mean, think about that. With the Fed and all the top CEOs in a room, and this is a couple weeks ago, not one of them stood up and said, hey, if we give them $30 billion, it's still not going to work. That tells you that the smartest guys in the room in finance had no idea what was going on. And what did the Fed do? The Fed made it, saw these banks crashing, and they created special programs to give them money and whatever, and bailed them out. So they're looking at the markets. But unless we get a full blown out crash in the stock market, maybe led by the bond market, a collapse in commercial real estate or something like that, don't expect the Fed to lower rates anytime soon. If they do, that'll be the biggest mistake they ever make because inflation is going to soar, and it's going to soar higher than it did in 2022. And we're seeing that now. Simple bailouts of the bank. Why is inflation going back up? At this stage, why is it going back up? I mean, I wouldn't expect them to lower rates anytime, especially not this year, and maybe not next year if inflation remains well above 2%, which again, Goldman is now predicting for all of 2024. So by December, they expected to go to 2.6%, which means that it's probably going to be over 3% for the majority of 2024. Who has that priced in? I think it was 1.8% Goldman had, and this was like 3 months ago. That's a significant difference. So Dan and I are going to be breaking this down even further on tomorrow's Wall Street Unplugged Premium podcast. I'll also be giving you a new trading idea, one that's going to be a huge beneficiary of rates staying high, which we expect. It's going to be good for this set of companies. I'm going to pick one that we think is just in prime position, and you're seeing it right now. I don't want to give too much away. To have tons of new subscribers, go into our premium podcast. It's $10 a month. You get newsletter, you get trading picks every week. It's really detailed. Also have some great interviews lined up over the next 2-3 weeks. Again, that's going to be exclusive to the premium podcast. If you want to learn more, go to WSUoffer.com. Again, $10 a month, and you can cancel anytime. So guys, that's it for me. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you guys tomorrow on Wall Street Unplugged Premium. Take care.